Hello, everyone. We are starting the panel, so if you'd like to join us, it's now or never. Welcome to the Modern Forms, Schonbek and Florida Design panel on the role of lighting in interior design today. I am Louis Rigual. I am the editor-in-chief of Florida Design Magazine, and I want to thank you for joining us today on this rather important aspect of design and what it entails. We have a great panel for you, and before we introduce them, I want to say thank you to Modern Forms and Schonbek for putting together this discussion and for hosting us in this amazing showroom. Starting from the lady in pink or salmon and blonde, if you could each state your name and what you do and where you're based out of, and we'll get going.
I knew you would pick me first because I didn't want you to. I'm Danielle Rollins. I live in Palm Beach, based Palm Beach in New York, with a shop Danielle Rollins, and Pop West Palm on Georgia Avenue. We do commercial, residential, and quite a bit of yacht work. We love what we do. We've got a small to medium-sized firm. The shop we've had about 3 years, and it was sort of a natural extension of brand, and it has been very, very fun. I love having the connection with different consumers and meeting clients, and it was something that was sort of a not well thought through plan, which a lot of the things I do are the same way. Daphne knows I bought the building and decided I had to do something with the space, so just jumped, and it's been really fun. It's going on our 3rd year, and now everybody is flocking to Georgia Avenue. We have Kravitz and Schumacher and several others moving in. So it's been a fun transition, and I absolutely love living in Palm Beach. I moved 8 years ago from Atlanta, and you can see I've embraced the aesthetic quite well. I wanted everybody to know that I was the Florida girl.
I'm Robin Branch Design, because the SBA told me it had to be my name because I was doing everything. So I put absolutely no thought into being a designer. It developed organically because I was a retailer and I was designing for other designers, and I thought, they're getting paid. I would like to get paid too. How do I do this? So I embraced it, took classes, figured it out, and learned to be a designer. And here I am. Thank you, Florida Design and everyone. And I do residential. I've done some commercial, mainly restaurants. Would love to do hospitality, but I just don't know when that would ever happen. We're in a lovely little spot, Amelia Island. It's tiny, completely north of Palm Beach. I say I'm South Georgia a lot, and a lot of people from South Georgia there. And I've done a few, I call them boats, and one plane, and that was fun. It was a lot of fun. But I learn each and every project. I have a great support system in that I have good friends that are other designers and good friends in the industry, and that's where I pull my knowledge from, because I'm a late bloomer. So I'm just thrilled to be here and thrilled to sit next to you. It's very good. It's all good.
Hello, I'm Christina Marin, and I work for Modern Form, Schonbek, all the WAC groups. I design this showroom. I do all our showrooms in Dallas, and I also work on all our trade show booths for the year. I started off as a fashion stylist in Miami, Florida, and then I went to working at the iconic Macy's on 34th Street for many years doing their store windows. And then I kind of stumbled into furniture, and now I'm here in lighting. So very happy to be here as well.
So let's kick off the Q&A. And start with Danielle at the very end. I wanted to ask you, as designers, how, you know, what the initial process, how early on in the process do you start thinking about lighting and determining the goals for a new client and their particular space?
The lighting part depends on the type of project. Is it one that's existing, that's getting a renovation? Is it a new build? Is it something that it's staying as it is and you're just sort of changing what you can? I do like to start as early as possible, and I think especially if you have a client that isn't sure about how much of a renovation they want to do, you have to kind of tread lightly, but lighting is very, very important. And we do a lot of quick flip condos, and a lot of those have popcorn ceilings and some of them have no lighting, and trying to kind of ease that in if we really need to think about the layers of lighting and sneak in some of the areas that we can if they're really not have an appetite for a renovation. And I usually call those like a cosmetic change and try to skim the word renovation out of it. If it is a big renovation and if it's a new build, especially very, very early on, because it's an incredibly important portion of how everything else plays with it. And I think the biggest challenge for us and for me living in Florida after having worked in Atlanta forever is how much natural light there is. So that's one of the things for us, is always trying to figure out that portion, because a lot of times too, especially the husbands, I don't mean this any pun intended, but they love the lighting and they get very excited and they hire some designer, and I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of light. So, you know, you kind of have to find the happy medium.
Very beginning, and because if there is a renovation, you need to know about it. I have a lot of popcorn ceilings too, and people panic. They don't want to mess with the ceiling. They don't want to touch it. You know, the lighting's too hard. But if you have beautiful solution, it helps. Also, if they're aging, you can explain to them that they're going to need more and more light. So their help comes into it. You can talk to them about safety, you know, lighting around cabinetry, lighting in layers above, in the center, below, wherever they're going, their pathways, all of those things. So it's really important to do it early. I mean, it's almost like preventative medicine, I think.
Christine, you want to give us your ideas on? I know your role is a little bit different, but your ideas on when you think that discussion should happen.
So I kind of working in reverse than as an interior designer would work on a project in a home, but I think here I usually start with our lights and our collections and what we have in the showroom, because obviously it's very bright in here. But I usually start with the product and then I design around it in here.
Your clients, and this one is for Danielle and Robin, starting with Danielle. How do you navigate that conversation about strategic lighting, telling them that it's going to do more than they anticipated, and how do you get across that it is a worthwhile investment?
We are actually doing a project in DC right now, and I try to tell people that it's a formula. It's a mathematic formula based on square footage, and the timing of how your needs can increase it or decrease that cost, but there's really no way to get around it. I mean, I can try to save some areas, to skimp somewhere, but 99% of the time, it comes out to that same formula. And it's usually, that's the discussion I usually have with the husband. And I always tell them I can do the best I can to stay within that, but I'm not going to manage your wife. I charge a lot extra for that. That is your job. But, I think really the lighting part of it is sometimes those are the special sparks of a room. And there are some areas that you can dial it down and it may not matter as much because the rest of the room is very design heavy. But for me, the room that's always very important is the dining room and the kitchen. And so we just decided to put in 2 chandeliers in this dining room, and that was a hard discussion to say, well, you need 2 of them, and you need 2 very expensive ones. And so that to me, though, I had to explain, though, it has to be a mix of something sparkly. It had to provide some overhead lighting, and I got the, we have plenty of recessed, and I said those serve a different, purpose. We also have art lighting. We also have lamps. And I was like, I have to explain the layers that we need. And I usually start by trying to say, like, let's envision a dinner party. And a dinner party, you don't want the overheads on. But if you're having a buffet, you need those on. So I always try to explain what the lighting is for. And like your beautiful art, we want to cast a soft glow on that. And we love to have a lamp in there if it works. Or maybe we light the china cabinets or something. But I usually try to explain what the lighting's for, where you're going to use it, and how it'll affect different types of using the room. And if it's done right, you'll use the room more.
I think also when you're coastal, you have to pay attention, like you said, the light is so much more extreme. If you're on the water, it changes color, so you have to pay attention to that. So that's an explanation for a client as well. I normally hit them with the beauty first. I find the one thing I think they're going to love the most, and I just sell hard. I sell really hard, and then I add the other things. And I think there's probably my worst situation was $150,000 custom chandelier, and we had to go into the attic and add a winch and to be able to clean it, to lower it up and down, and it was a production. That was quite a bit more money because we had to go through the ceiling and do construction just to hang that beautiful chandelier. But luckily, she'd fallen in love with it and all was well. So you just have to communicate and talk and explain every little thing, every little level, every little reason. And it's usually there. It's usually there.
This is one for all of you. What have you found this the most misunderstood aspect of lighting by clients? Christina, we can start with you on this one.
I think the most misunderstood thing is if you're not educated in lighting and different rooms for your house about the layers of light. And what I usually like to do is start with a statement piece and then add in like some mood lighting or some lamps or something like that for your space. Because a lot of people, I go to their houses, they have one ceiling light and they don't really understand that maybe you don't want to, when you're hanging out at night in your house, just have that ceiling light on. You need a couple different layers. So I like to really drive that home to people.
Robin?
I think color. I think color with the LED bulbs now, it's probably my biggest hurdle with people. I don't want a home to look like a hospital. I don't want everything to look like task lighting. I want levels, and people don't understand it. Our clients can't buy their own light bulbs. We order light bulbs with everything. I love companies that have light bulbs and reps that explain light bulbs and help me to explain better to my client so that I can light the home properly. I do like levels, like you're saying. It's really important. And that task light needs to be a little brighter, sometimes a little more concentrated, where the ambient light doesn't really matter. I'm more of an ambient girl. I like that. I could walk around in the dark all day. It's kind of my groove, dark and moody, and I like it. But I am of age, so I need to be able to see so I don't fall down. So I just, I don't know. The color, I think, is the hardest part for me.
Lighting symbiotic with the style, the design of the home. And making it feel like it's integrated and it's not the one thing that sticks out or the one thing that recedes. And I mean, it's different the way you light a bathroom, which I think about a lot, and I think about that probably more for a woman than I would for a man. But like where the light's hitting you and within the spaces and how much you have natural light coming in or not. But the lighting for the kitchen and the bathroom are the two most challenging probably for me, is trying to convince somebody that we should do 3 lights over the island, or we should still have this and we should still have this, because those are the rooms that change depending on the time of the day. I mean, when you put your makeup on in the morning, it might be a lot brighter than it would be at night, so you need to be able to adjust the type of lighting around. And I'm not a big fan of having lighting coming at me from down or straight at me, either one. So, layers.
Christina, this one's a little technical, and so I'm going to throw it at you. Can you explain to us the basics of color temperature and why it's such a critical decision when it comes to sort of setting the mood for a room or a space?
Sure. So I'm a big fan of warm lighting. I see a lot of people use cool tones and cooler lighting in their homes, which I feel like is kind of sterile. It's good for certain areas, as you say, for women and bathrooms. But for the space, I'm also a person that will walk around in the dark. I never put the big light on, so I'm really more of a warm color temperature person. So I really promote that in the home over like a cool color temperature. I feel like that's more for a commercial space.
This is a fun one. From a practical standpoint, what is the rule of lighting that you follow religiously as designers? I'm going to start with Robin on this one. Or is there, or maybe one that you enjoy breaking that's a cliche and you don't find to be
That
true?
works.
Okay.
I don't follow a lot of rules, and I've managed to skate through life like that, and it's wonderful. I don't know. There are certain rules that I really hate. I hate when someone moves in to a beautiful Florida home and it's lovely and open, and wherever the home may be. We're just Floridians, so I guess we say this, but they bring their dark federal furniture and they buy a really contemporary light that is too bright, it's what, 5,000 or I don't know. It's craziness, and it makes me nuts. I just go into like a blind rage, and I can't say anything. I have to just weasel my way into their good graces and trash that thing as soon as I can, or replace the table, or both. And so I have this built-in defense mechanism. When I see something I don't like, I don't remember it. And the client is like, well, my dining table, and I'm like, what table? Well, okay. And then we can circle back, what light? Oh, and then we circle back, and then I finally break it to them after a little bit of conversation, and I've hit a few home runs. Then we go back and we circle and we get rid of that mess. That's my big death drop right there. Can't take it.
Listening to you talk about that, it's very similar with that, but I think from another perspective of having done several yachts and we work on those, one of my bigger challenges is convincing somebody that buys a yacht, whether it's brand new or it's a refit, that we need to add in extra lighting, that we do need lamps, that we do need some of the soft goods in there, and how much of it you need to make it feel warm and livable and like a home. And so that's usually one of my first things of trying to convince them of like, we need a lamp here because everything's coming in from either outside and it's so bright, or we have so much, the lighting on yachts is crazy because you have tube lighting, you have stair lighting, you have lighting everywhere coming at you. But trying to convince them that at night you want something softer in there, so we do need some lamps, and then pointing out that we have to hardwire it into their system usually. But those have been like the main challenges for us within that. But in homes, we've been so lucky because clients trust us. And I mean, I can only think of a couple of times that I've had to push back, but generally whenever I say it's what it needs to be and I explain why, they're like, well, you're in charge. So that's always the dream way to be. But I think, again, you have to explain why to people before you explain what.
Robin touched on, yes, of course.
Very much to what you say. I sort of weasel little baby lamps in at the end when I go back to do accessories. I have small lamps with me and directional little, and I put those in and they go through every single time because they make sense and you've earned the client's trust by then. So yeah, it's helpful.
The next question, Robin, you touched on this a little bit. You said that, buying, or outfitting a space with modern lighting when your look of furniture is completely traditional, it's a big mistake. But for the other two, what do you think are the most common mistakes you see people or clients make when it comes to choosing their lighting?
Hope there's no contractors in here because they're going to hate me, but sometimes the contractors come up with ideas. I mean, that's why we have a barn door, which is, they all love them. But, I think sometimes it's like, well, the contractor says this, and I'm like, well, the contractor's not being paid to design your project. So I try to say it in a nice way, maybe not so snarky, but I think they try to be helpful. And then, I think really sitting down and trying to see how they live and what their goals are, and I try to hear what they want from their project and then find a way to make that kind of incorporate with it. But we all see it, where you walk in and it's like full-on overheads and they're all on, and trying to get that softness. And in Florida you see all the high-rises going up and you can tell when people are home, but some of them are so bright, and I can't imagine living in that without having layers of softness, to have some privacy and some like purposeful task to do, like how do you play card games, or how do you have dinner, or how do you put your makeup on if it's all straight on overhead, and like when the curtains go up you're on display. So I'm a big lamp fan personally, and I love overheads, and I like having a mix of things, but I rarely turn the overheads on. I love art lights, and I like things to be coming from different angles. So I think just trying to explain the why things are. And sometimes when you start pulling things together and showing people, it becomes more, you get their trust, and it becomes more, okay, I understand now why.
I'd just like to comment on what you just said. So a contractor and electrician hates to see me coming, because what's very important to me is that even when you have recessed lighting in your kitchen, I like to have a bunch of switches. And now we have smart, and we have iPads, and we can control everything together, so you don't need like a long line of switches like we used to have. But I will do one recessed lighting, isolate it, just the light over the sink, baby. That will be on one switch, because I like to turn on different lights at different times, even in the same room.
Other mistakes?
Sure, yeah. I love to add a recessed light over the basin in the bathroom as well, so you have the sconces and maybe an overhead elsewhere, and you have light coming from everywhere. And let me just say, I'm going to lose friends on this one. Realtor photographs, the worst. They light that place up like a runway, and it has no feeling of home. First they paint it white and get rid of all personality, and then they light it up like that, and they take the photograph, and I see nothing. It just is awful to me. I would never buy a house that had that photograph. I don't know how they do it, but that's how they roll.
Could you share your strategy for lighting a kitchen, which is somewhat of a, it's a room that needs task lighting for food prep, and then little ambient lighting for socializing and just sort of being in there. And how do you balance the different approaches to lighting that room needs? Danielle?
Kitchens can be a little tricky, and I think especially with the cabinet, I tend to like, if it's a glass cabinet, having something interior but a little bit, like I don't love the tube lighting on every single level. I like to have something underneath the cabinets. I like to have some recessed a little bit depending on the amount of natural light in there. Definitely like to have stuff over the island. I tend to love a lamp put on a tray near the coffee maker or something. I like it to feel very styled like the rest of the rooms. And lately I've kind of started liking having it under the toe kick area so it's soft if you're walking in the room. And one of the nice things has been some of the new rechargeable LED lamps that you don't have to have a cord for. It's kind of been game changing, and we've first they were not as great, but there's some really beautiful things coming out now, so it's given more flexibility as far as where things can go. So they can go on the breakfast table, they can go into parts of an island that may not have an outlet to run down. But I think, again, kitchen, you should think about, like, you may not want the whole thing coming on at 6 in the morning when you're walking in to make coffee, so little bits of light coming on, but I like it from different angles and different places coming at me.
I don't cook, so I'm not a big kitchen person. I can make a kitchen beautiful, set a great table, but the function of a kitchen eludes me. So, but I get the lighting. I really do. I get the lighting. I would have like a bar sink and a mini fridge and microwave drawer, and I'd be happy. But I agree. I think about a feel that I get when I walk into a kitchen, and it is comfort. I want mashed potatoes and biscuits, and I want good stuff. So a warm lamp on the counter feels good to me. It feels like it's been there for a long time, and I love it. I do the underneath, I do the under cabinet, I do a light in the top of the cabinets that will filter down, hopefully. To get wooden shelves, you got that dilemma, and those builders want to throw that ugly rope in there every time. So, I mean, it is sort of a dilemma, and some people want to light the top of the cabinet, and I like cabinets to go all the way up. Yeah, I don't know. But it's just, you've got to get to your happy place in the space. You've got to get in early and figure it out.
Yeah, we'd love to see your thoughts on this one too.
Sure. So for different design styles, I feel like the lighting can be a little different. So if you have more of a traditional older style kitchen, I don't like to light everything up with like an under cabinet or the cove lighting or above cabinet projecting up to the ceiling. I think it really doesn't go with a more traditional space. But I think for modern kitchens, it looks beautiful. I love the under cabinet cove, and I'm a very big fan of doing a linear over a countertop instead of doing a bunch of pendants hanging over. I feel like if the pendant is not totally a vertical shape, it looks a little jumbled sometimes together. And I think a linear looks a lot more clean over like a center cabinet island.
What's your approach when it comes to lighting that you want to use to highlight certain architectural features or to showcase artwork without creating glare?
The lighting part with that has to be played in. You kind of have to know your floor plan, and you have to know what you're putting in before you do that. That's one of those things you really have to do while you're decorating. You can't do it after the fact. But I think that's, again, talking through and creating a floor plan and kind of having an agreement that it's going to stay within that. The things around there could move a little bit, but if it's a client that has a heavy art collection, we have to think through how that's going to be and where it's going to be placed. And, there's different recessed areas that can spot at it. I tend to really love a mix of picture lights over pieces. I think it adds a warmth to a room, and I think there's an area for both. But I think those are the cases if it's very heavy architecture that I do like to bring in a lighting designer to just make sure there's certain areas that I'm not overlooking, or there's spaces that we need to really highlight, or kind of how it's going to make the mood of a room. But again, everything on something that can be dimmed.
Gallery wall. I still love a gallery wall, and I agree with what you say to put a portrait light here or there, not on everything. I do like, if there is a niche, a light inside the niche, a small little recess. I think you can vary different ways to do all of that and make it lovely. I have not used any of the portable portrait lights yet. Have you? You like them? Good, good. I haven't done it yet, so.
I think it also depends on the art and what you're trying to highlight on your wall, because whether you're using a wall wash or a different type of lighting, it's going to be shiny if you have an art that's framed with like glass over it or plexi. So sometimes a wall wash is a better alternative than to using more of like a portrait light, because you're still going to get that reflection. So usually I recommend to people that they just have the art as a canvas and they don't have that kind of framing glass over it, because you're always going to get some kind of glare no matter which way you light it.
On this a little bit. Are there, what are the technologies or new innovations in lighting that you're most excited about? Would you say it was that type of lighting that you mentioned before, panel lighting?
When it first came out, I was a little suspicious, and I have a friend in the back who remembers being with us on the boat in Newport, and the first time there was the table lamp and there was no cord, and I was fascinated by it. I was like, I had the thing turned over. I was already trying to find out how to get them for the shop. And then they started coming out more and more. And at first they were kind of looked like you take them on a picnic. Now, like, every single lamp is being put that way. And I kind of go back and forth. Like, I still like an old-fashioned light bulb, and I hoard them, and I buy them and put them in drawers, and I feel terrible, and I know I'm ruining the environment single-handedly, but the light's prettier. But I do like the option of having them. And I especially, I guess, where I really love them is for a dinner party. Instead of a candle, and I'm not a big candle fan, I like them on a table. I think they're pretty and they're soft and they add a little glow, but they have to be done right, and they have to be done in the right environment. But there are so many areas of, like, we were in a showroom yesterday, and there was a lamp that I bought for our boat that had too large of a base to fit in the space, so I had our local lamp shop take it off, make a smaller base but weight it. Then they had to make it shorter. Then they had to make it LED, and they came out with an LED version, and I was like, wow, that one's like very reasonable compared to what I wanted to get it to do the thing I wanted it to do. So I do think there's some interesting spots, and I think it's nice to have stuff, especially you can take it outside for outdoor entertaining, which is a big thing in Florida. But I don't love the glow of them as much. So I think there's still a little ways to go, but I think it's a nice option for spaces that you don't have an outlet.
Cute. I love light bulbs, old bulbs. And I think what I'm pretty excited about is voice control in smart homes as far as lighting, and the fact that I like Lutron. I like to use Lutron, and I love lights that integrate with Lutron really well. Voice control, because I'm technically challenged about anything and everything. Even voice control, I'm screaming at Siri, I'm yelling at what the other one is, and I'm in the wrong one. I have the Alexa, and I'm screaming, Siri, Siri, So I just want like a chip in me, so that when I walk in, the lights come on. That's what I'm living for, honestly. I really am. It's hard to understand smart. I had a young man who was starting in the business, and he said, tell me what you do not want to see as a designer. I said, I do not want you to take $150,000 of my budget for a room of electronics that I'm calling you all the time to come back. I don't want to see equipment for the TV. I don't want to see speakers. I don't want to know they're there. I don't want to design around them or anything. And the first time we worked together, I did a media cabinet. He said, this will not work. I said, it will work. He said, no, it won't. Yes, it will. No, it won't. And we went back and forth and back and forth. And my cabinet guy built it, and it worked. And it was great. And he said, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So that collaboration is there. If they'll just listen a little bit, we'll get there, I think. But I really am excited about just truly smart. When it knows you, it knows you're there. And they're watching us, they know everything. You are on Instagram and all the ads pop up. I mean, why can't they just turn my light on?
My accent's not nearly as thick as yours, so I'm going to try that next time. It's just got a little more southern. I love
Christina, you probably get some, by the very nature of your job, you get to a preview of these innovations that are coming in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what excites you about that?
My favorite new technology, especially being an ex-Florida resident and living in New York, because we get very long days that are very dark and it can go on for weeks. And I love the new technology that you can program the natural light to your house. So you can do from sunrise to sunset and have the light mimicking on the interior of your house of what the sun would naturally do during the day. And I love that. I think it's an amazing technology, especially for winter.
And this one's also for you, Christina. I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the what's new with the Schonbek and modern forms at High Point this fall, what you guys are showing and what we should be on the lookout for.
For this market, what we're really highlighting is our customs. And we added a new custom counter to the showroom with all different finishes. And Schonbek can do anything. They are really true artisans, and any designer that can dream something up and come up with a sketch, I'm confident that they can build it. So we have textures, colors, different crystal, and they can make basically everything. So we're really pushing our customs.
Wrap up our Q&A with the panel and thank them for their time and their insight on this great topic. And before we wrap up the presentation, I wanted to open the room to the audience and see if you have any questions. Yeah.
If you're going more for a modern look, if you're going more for a traditional, I think it's harder to probably mix the metals overtly if it's a more traditional project. But I tell people too, I don't like to do it super overtly where it doesn't look like it's purposeful. But it's just like wearing jewelry. Like I don't necessarily have to have, I could have platinum diamond studs mixed with something, more soft on my belt buckle. I don't get that crazy, but I think that it's, I tend to be a little more of a purist, especially because we do have a little bit more of a traditional aesthetic. And I like things to have at least the same softness. So I might mix something that's a little more brushed and something brass, but I tend to use hardware and lighting as a feature. Like I look at it like the decorative elements. They're your earrings, they're your watch, they're your belt buckle, and I'm not a huge fan of mixing them. I just feel like sometimes it looks a little too lost. I mean, it's, I take the care to get dressed and kind of make sure everything's all balanced in your house. Should be the same way, but there are some examples of like where your hardware may be existing, and it's, if it's a mountain home, it's a lot easier to mix a dark metal and a bronze and kind of this and a polished nickel looks weird there. Whereas, some of the other places, and I think you can kind of mix room to room. Like I love a bathroom that feels shiny and clean, and to me, I love nickel in a bathroom. I'm not a big brass fan in there, and I don't know why. But I love like warm brass, hardware, and I think it just depends on the style of the home. But I'm not a huge mixer.
To mix, I love gold and silver together. I like hot and cold. I'm sort of a paradox myself, I guess. So it fits my personality, and I gravitate to lighting and hardware that are mixed metals. So it gives me that freedom. I like it. It doesn't always work though, like you're saying. I don't think you can do a really modern home with mixed metals very well. It has to be very, very calculated. I think a curated home, that's sometimes for me, a traditional home that you've acquired things over generations, I feel like maybe you could do it there a little because the metals turn with age, so they allow you that flexibility. But I do like that hot cold look.
I've been wondering, how do you steer a client in the direction of trying to maintain timeless versus trendy? How do you steer a client in the direction of trying to keep them in a timeless aesthetic versus trendy? What's been your approach to that?
That is just, you gotta shut them down. They hired you, you're the expert, you know what you're talking about, just shut them down. And, give them a reason, you can be nice about it, you don't have to boot them out the door or anything like that, or make them feel bad about it. You give them that explanation and then you just move on, it's not open for discussion.
Get tired of this over time. Let's look at maybe having something that's a little bit more of a splash in that feel for something else that could be changed. But the other thing too is they're making a huge investment. And I mean, when you said that off the top of my head, it comes into like a chandelier. And I always tell them, like, this is going to be here. This is a major focal point of this room, and it's a big investment. And, most lighting is not inexpensive. And to do it right, it needs to look thoughtfully done, and it needs to be something that works year-round, season-round, wherever it is, and you need to come in and love it every day more and more. That's where I try to work. We're creating the atmosphere that you're going to live with in this space for a really long time, and it's an investment. So let's talk about the price that it is versus the amount of times you're going to use it and the kind of cost per wear of it. And maybe a trendy thing isn't as good because it's better to be the trend setter, trend follower.
By the way, plus you really have to show everything involved. The second question overlaps. Why do I still like purple light bulbs and lights? Is that still strange? And in Florida, the sun just destroys everything.
Well, window treatments and gels and, all kinds of, the sun is harsh in Florida. Look at my skin. Honestly, I'm brown hair, my hair turns orange all the time because of Florida. But there are just things like that. I think the elements, the salt, the sun, everything, you got to protect it, and it's just part of the daily upkeep of it. It is tough.
I'm a German. I just basically feel like I'm going to enjoy it in this lifetime, and if my kids still have it, great. If they don't, then I enjoyed the hell out of it. I'm not going to live with anything that's too precious to have it give me joy for every single day. And I tell people this all the time: the things I buy are there to serve me, not the universe. And let's be very clear: I don't have overly precious art, and nor do I want it. I like to change. Roby knows my poor fiance comes home and he's like, what happened to the house? And I'm like, I change everything as soon as he leaves. I like things to evolve.
What about my purple light bulb?
She said you're an old hippie.
We're Texas.
I have a good story about changing the house all the time. I did that too, and I still do. And my son, I was doing the mama talk, about this goes to this and this goes to that person and all that, because I've been with my nieces and nephews. And they were like, Aunt Robin, I want that and I want this. So I started divvying up the art. And my child was very like, whatever, Mom, until I got to the art. And he said, oh, that's mine. I get all of the art. And I'm thinking, oh, I have this wonderful Renaissance child. I'm great. I'm such a good mother. And then I was like, oh, no, it's just because it's the only thing that was the constant in his home. You know, I never threw out the art. I always kept the art. But I do love art. It probably would spend too much on it. I almost bought him Matisse one time.
Anybody else? Questions? No? Well, please help me thank our panel with a round of applause. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for your expertise and for joining us today. And to the rest of you, have a great rest of market. Thank you.
Thank you.